Jumping back into the action here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast and taking a look more on some trade talk around the NFL now, not just focusing on the Steelers like we just did in the last segment, but broadening it out a little bit more to four other teams, five in total, at who I'm looking at as teams that absolutely need to look to make a trade to really cash in and really go all in on 2024 because they're in a spot where maybe we didn't expect them to be, or they're in a very good spot and I need them to stay there. I would like them to stay there, and I think trading would ensure that, or just they're almost there, but they need this trade, in my opinion, to kind of stay there and even get better. So the five teams that we're going to be looking at are the Arizona Cardinals, the Steelers, just piggybacking off of what we just talked about, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Los Angeles Chargers are five teams that I think need to absolutely make a trade because of those scenarios that I laid out before. We are only 5 days away from the trade deadline, and it's getting pretty tight near the top of the standings, in the middle, everybody jockeying for position. So you need to do something to kind of differentiate yourself from all these teams, right? You can't just stay put and think you have a decent enough team. If other teams are getting better, right? We've seen the Chiefs get better and they're undefeated. We've seen the Bills go out and get Amari Cooper. The Jets, maybe they didn't get better, but they at least tried, and they went out and got Devontae Adams. The Chiefs also traded for a guy like Josh Uche. Teams that are really buying in, teams that are committed to winning, they're going out and doing something about it. So these teams also need to try and keep pace with it because they're in situations where they potentially didn't expect to be, or they're right on the precipice of being very, very good. So one of those scenarios is the Arizona Cardinals, right? They're in first place right now in the NFC West at 4-4, technically, because they have the tiebreakers over the Seahawks and over the 49ers. So they're in first place right now. They're the fourth seed in the playoffs if that was to start today. So in a spot where probably not a lot of people thought they'd be, halfway through the year, you'd probably think the Cardinals are last, but they're first. So what do you do if you're the Cardinals, right? You're essentially almost playing with house money, right? Because nobody really thought you were going to be here, and you're still, I would imagine the Cardinals are saying that they're still way off from where their final product is, right? Because they have Jonathan Gannon, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. They have good pieces, but still a long ways away, I believe, and I'm pretty sure they would agree, from where they ideally want to be as a team, as a roster, and everything like that. But you're doing pretty well so far, and you've gotten help from other teams in your division, so it's working out right now, and why not try and cash in on that and try to get better? This defense, in my opinion, is the only side of the football that they need to look at, really, because the offense is looking pretty good, like I mentioned with those names before, and defensively, they rank 29th in pressure rate, 27th in sack rate so far through this half of the year. So maybe looking at someone like Chase Young on the Saints. The Saints are 2-6 and could be looking to sell some of their assets to gain some equity or gain some draft capital back if that intrigues them. The Cardinals going after a guy like Chase Young, they definitely need some pass rushing help, and Chase Young would certainly help out with that. Or maybe a guy like, maybe a couple people don't know the name, but Azeez Ojulari from the New York Giants. He has 6 sacks this year. He's in the final year of his contract with the Giants, and he's not necessarily a starter because it's usually Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, but Kayvon Thibodeau is injured right now, so Ojulari's playing a lot more, and he's performing with this opportunity that has been given to him. So he's also in the final year of his contract. Why not try and talk with the Giants there? You're looking at a team that's 4-4. What would the Giants be willing to accept for trading away Azeez Ojulari, who again is in the final year of his contract, right? Why not get something for him over the risk of losing him for nothing? It could be two interesting options for the Cardinals. Also, Their pass defense isn't great, so I don't know. Maybe like Marshawn Lattimore could be something if they could agree with something with the Saints also. He has been in some trade rumors, and the Cardinals don't necessarily have a shutdown corner, so Lattimore would definitely be someone of interest, I would believe, but that's the Cardinals, right? We talked about the Steelers, their first place in the AFC North, right in that sweet spot where you've done very well with the easy part of your schedule, right? You're 6-2. You'd ideally like to be better, right? Both games were decided by 3 points, so you could, in a different world, in a different universe, you could be undefeated right now. But that's not the case, and still, you've played pretty decently against these teams that I think most would say that the Steelers should be able to beat. So you're still, I think, a step or two away from really being competitive. So like we talked about, trading for a wide receiver like Cortland Sutton, Darius Slayton, Mike Williams, could be something of interest, right? They're not playing this week, so they have a lot of time on their hands to try and address that position. Or a sneaky one would be defensive line, because their running game has been pretty permeable a little bit. They have been giving up some pretty big runs. So maybe someone like Adam Butler from the Las Vegas Raiders, the defensive tackle, could be someone that you could rotate in certain run-stopping situations where he could help out a lot to just plug up those holes. But really, wide receiver is what the Steelers need to be looking out for. Then the next three teams I have on here, one of them is the Detroit Lions, and I mentioned it a little bit before. The Lions, I've said, are the best team, in my opinion, in the NFL right now. But still, I believe they need a pass rusher. I believe they need someone to come and fill the gap for Aiden Hutchinson, because even though they're blowing teams out right now and it's all great, laughing, having fun on the sidelines, right? When you get to the playoffs, you're going to need someone to get to the quarterback. You're going to need someone to get to Jalen Hurts, to get to Brock Purdy, to get to Jordan Love. Anybody else I'm not mentioning, Matthew Stafford, guys like that. You need someone to be able to get to them. And in the playoffs, where everything's a lot tighter, there's more pressure, everything is amplified a little bit more. So not having a guy like that, I believe, would come back to bite them. So they're really good right now. That's really the only spot I would say that they need to go and try to find someone. And, they've been rumored with Zadarius Smith because of what the Browns are going through. Maybe Hassan Reddick if the Jets also lose. They haven't given him an extension, so why not explore that opportunity? Depending on what the Jets are gonna ask for, that would be something of interest for sure. But that's really what it is for the Lions. A pass rusher, certainly. And staying in that same division, the Minnesota Vikings, they're third in the NFC North right now at 5-2. After starting the year off so hot, they fell from first place all the way down to third place because of their pass defense. It's bottom 3 in the NFL right now. So with that in mind, I mentioned Marshawn Lattimore before. The Vikings were able to go out and get Stephon Gilmore. He's been pretty well for them. He's been doing pretty well for them. Maybe a guy like Greg Newsome with the Browns, again, trying to cash in on maybe some of their young players or just some of their assets in general. Why not just ask about Greg Newsome and see if he could come and help out their team? He's a pretty underrated corner as well, and he's been doing pretty well in Cleveland as well, alongside Denzel Ward. So while all the attention might go over to him because Denzel Ward is very good, he's been holding up his end of the deal. He's been playing very good, so why not explore that? Or from the Jacksonville Jaguars, why not Tyson Campbell? He's their best corner, but also they're not in a situation where they're really thinking about making the playoffs realistically. They're 2-6 also, I believe, so that could be something of interest for the Vikings to kind of poach away Tyson Campbell from the Jaguars. And lastly, an interesting one from a team that we mentioned on this list, the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe you could ask about Budda Baker to kind of pair him back there with Harrison Smith. Would be a great duo, but I don't think the Cardinals would really be willing to do that for someone in their conference. But, it doesn't hurt to ask. But really, Marshawn Lattimore, Greg Newsome, Tyson Campbell, I think would be great fits in a Brian Flores defense. And lastly here, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. They're in third place in the AFC West. They're the 7th seed in the playoffs right now, and they're 4-3. They're playing very solid, very well on brand Harbaugh style football, running the ball, playing great defense, great offensive line, and pretty good defensive line as well. But I feel like they still need more on offense, right? You look at the game against the Chiefs. I believe it finished 17-10, and I believe if they just had some more offense to kind of threaten the Chiefs with a little bit, that game could have been a lot closer, and maybe the Chargers steal one there. Lad McConkey is awesome. He looked very good in their last game, and I think, he's great. He's awesome and everything like that, but they're going to need a lot more to kind of improve this offense and make it a little bit more dynamic as well. Also, with teams like the Colts, the Bengals in 8th and 9th place in the AFC, they have great offenses as well. You look at Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, all for the Colts. And then you look at the Bengals, right? Joe Burrow, Jamar, T Higgins. They have great offensive weapons as well. You don't want to be the Chargers and be forced to not be able to go toe-to-toe with some of these teams. So you got to match the firepower at some point, right? And I know this year it was only the first year of Jim Harbaugh, but they're in a spot right now where they need to take advantage of it. So a guy like Mike Williams seems to be the ideal fit for me because of the familiarity and everything like that. He would come at a cheaper price also. But, any wide receiver would certainly benefit them. Darius. Cortland Sutton, I don't think they trade within the division. So someone like Darius Slayton, Mike Williams, I think would be ideal for the Chargers to go out and trade for. So those are the 5 teams I think need to make a trade, certainly, to try and take advantage of their opportunity, because all these teams share the same situation where they're in a spot where it's very good. The Cardinals 4-4, the Steelers 6-2, the Broncos in the playoffs, the Vikings, not falling off, but still need to keep pace with everybody else. So you don't want to be that team left behind. So I think making a trade would put these teams back squarely into the middle of that race here in the NFL. Now that we're entering a very exciting, very pressure-full second half of the year in the NFL. So we have one more topic to talk about on today's show. We're going to talk about the Houston Texans and that injury to Stephon Diggs, because with everything that was going on, I forgot to talk about it. So we're going to mention it, give our thoughts on it, and whether or not the Texans could be in the market also for a wide receiver. Do we think that's necessary? We'll answer that question when we return just after this quick break.